So let's get started. What we're going to talk about here today is a speech I like to call Get Ready, Set, Go. And it's a speech that I put together, and a lot of the inspiration came from a gentleman at my church by the name of Ian Cox. It's funny because it's content that he got and developed from a business setting that he applied to a spiritual setting. I was sitting there listening to this and taking notes and loved it so much I said, well, that's great, so I kind of converted it back into a business setting. A lot of the ideas are mine, but the basic structure and outline is Ian Cox's, and since this is going to be on the internet, I figured that I should at least give Ian credit right from the beginning on what we're going to be talking about. I want to be very clear, though, about what we're not going to be talking about. This is not a goals writing workshop. There's a lot of books and information out there on how to write goals, and we're not going to be taking a blow-by-blow how to write a goal, how to write a plan. And I think that what you're going to see is we're going to talk about why goals are important, how you can use goals, and why you should implement goals, and really why they matter. We find ourselves at different points of preparation in our life. We find ourselves at different points where we can make a new opportunity. And if we stop and we prepare for that new opportunity, I think that we can have success in that opportunity. Preparation leads to success. Let me back up just a little bit and kind of set this up for you. I played a lot of sports when I was in high school. I played track and cross country and soccer and swimming and basketball. You could say that I gave many attempts before I stopped and gave up and realized I'm no athlete. And that's a joke. They don't get any better than that. I mean, hopefully some of you guys know me well enough to know that I'm certainly not exactly athletic. But I certainly appreciate athletics. And more than just appreciating athletics, I appreciate competition. My wife says that I'm probably the most competitive person on the face of the earth, and I'm one of 3 brothers, and whenever we get together, we are definitely highly competitive with one another. So I was watching with great interest the Olympics this past year. And the cool thing about the Olympics is not only are there athletes at the peak of their performance, but I became more aware of and more interested in the stories behind these performances. In many ways, I was more interested in the athletes themselves than I was the actual sporting events. And it's kind of been a trend that I've noticed developing over the past 2 or 3 Olympic cycles is the TV coverage is more and more spending time on who the athletes are and the amount of preparation that it takes, the amount of dedication that they have to put into being there in that final heat, what it takes to find themselves in that final race. I remember hearing about one athlete who had not gone to the movies in a year. Now, I do not have many vices or guilty pleasures in my life, but one of them is definitely movies. I mean, I'm a movie buff. I love them. And so that, to me, that was, that would be quite a sacrifice. Another athlete said that they had sworn off desserts while they were preparing for their Olympic presentation. And I think whenever we look at competition of any time, whenever there's training involved, there's an aspect of diminishing returns that comes into effect, and we need to be very aware of. If you were going to start today, or on Thursday, a running regimen of running an hour, a mile every day. If you started running a mile today and ran a mile tomorrow, by next Thursday, you would probably see a minute or 2 come off of your mile time, even though you had only been running for a week. But part of the reason for that is because you had only been running for a week. It was something new to you, and that those first couple minutes come off very easily. But you would not be able to continue that as you move forward. You would have to run harder and harder for longer and longer to continue to see time come off. It's the diminishing returns principle. If you're upgrading a car for auto racing, some of the easiest, quickest, and most cost-effective ways of getting time off that car is the first improvements that you do. But as you continue to improve that car, some of the most expensive repairs and some of the most expensive upgrades would be one of the last ones you do. In racing, the last 0.002 seconds of your quarter-mile time are invariably the most expensive. It requires incredible preparation and sacrifice and being willing to live with diminishing returns to find yourself in those Olympic trials and in those Olympic heats. And what also amazed me about this was they were there competing with full knowledge that this was something that might never come. You can be an Olympian and never actually medal. I think we need to apply the same dedication in our lives and recognize that our timeline could very easily in our professional life be the same. One of my favorite quotes is called "The Man in the Arena" by Teddy Roosevelt, and I will just summarize it briefly. It says, "It is not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or how the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by sweat and blood and dust, who strives valiantly in a worthy cause, who comes up short time and time again, and knows that in the end, if he is victorious, he will have been victorious daring something great. And if he fails, he knows that he came up short in a worthy cause. But the one thing he can be sure of is that his place will never be with those cold, timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat." One of the things that keeps me going and one of the things that I prepare for and I recognize is I know that my place will never be with those cold, timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Actors take on a similar mindset of dedication. My sister-in-law is a Broadway actress, and she followed a very strict regimen and plan to her life. During high school, she took voice lessons, acting lessons, dancing lessons, singing lessons. She worked at many local community theaters, and she took workshops in other cities. And after high school, she got a full ride to Hofstra University, a noted theater school. And while she was there, she didn't just party away her college days. She used it as an opportunity to align herself with some of the best coaching and mentoring that her profession had to offer. She made connections there, and she actually moved to New York. One of the things that Olympic athletes will do is they will move to a different city because there's a training facility there, or they move over here because there's a coach there that they want to work with. Now, I'm not suggesting that we all need to get up and move, but recognize that there might be things about our life that we need to realign and reshift and refocus if we're interested in achieving our goals. After she moved to New York, she was realistic. I think that's an important thing about goals, is we need to be realistic, and she knew that the huge roles weren't going to come right away, and so she started waiting tables. She got a job at some really nice, classy steakhouses in Manhattan, and Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, was one of her regular customers and would come in and ask for my sister-in-law Deb. Sean Hannity, one of the restaurants she worked at was Del Frisco's, which was either in the same building or right across the street from Fox News Corporation, and Sean Hannity, even though these two politics are totally separate, but I won't get into that. Sean Hannity would come in and ask for my sister-in-law Deb, and he was one of her regulars at this very high-class steakhouse. And she was able to make good money for that while she continued to work on her craft. She stayed in her modest apartment in her small town in Long Island and saved money, kept her expenses low. And I was just in New York last weekend seeing one of her shows, stayed in the theater district. My wife and I got away from our 4 kids for the first time in a while. And what I was struck with was how easy it is to spend a lot of money and have a lot of money in New York. Now, my wife and I were there on a very strict budget, but if you got money in New York, there's a lot of fun that you can have. And Deb didn't do that. She kept her eye on the prize. She managed her sleep, she managed her workout routine, she managed what she put into her body. She got a job as a personal trainer because she knew that it would be a way of multitasking. She would be able to, number one, make money, number two, keep herself fit, because obviously show business is very unforgiving, and she'd be able to make great connections. But here's the point that so inspired me about my sister-in-law. At a point, she recognized she was not getting the roles that she wanted. And so she had saved up this money, and she took part of her money and she started to produce her own shows, casting herself in the starring role, of course, and is now having great success as an actress and a producer in Broadway. Now this isn't a talk about my sister-in-law's career. I just admire the way she stuck to her plan. I admire the way that even though life threw her curveballs, she was prepared, willing, and able to make adjustments and changes to that. And she kept her eye on the ball, and she did not allow herself to celebrate early successes too soon. Sometimes we get a little bit of success, we have a little bit of things going our way, and we celebrate that success instead of using that success as a springboard to the next step. Oftentimes in life, we're presented with seasons, sometimes short, sometimes long, but these seasons provide us with an opportunity to reevaluate, to step back and say, how do we want to do things differently moving forward? As a nation, we just had an election, and some of us are happy about that election results that we had, and we are inspired to take on a new day. Some of us are not happy about that election results that we just had, and we're saying to ourselves, in spite of what just happened in Washington, we are going to draw a line in the sand and make this a new day. I think that there's really no better time than New Year's to take a new opportunity and a new fresh look at where we are and where we're going to go in the future. What do I want to do differently in 2013 than what I've done up to this point? In a way, I'm very glad that this meeting, we're having this towards the end of January, because a lot of us who made kind of those fluffy, frilly New Year's resolutions, you know what I'm talking about. I want to quit smoking. I want to make more money. I want to be a better dad. I'm going to work out. I'm going to, get a diet plan and stick to it. By this time of the month, pretty much all that stuff is fluttered away. Because if your goal is just lose weight or exercise more, that is not a goal, and you're going to see that is very quickly going to just be something that fitters out of your life. Maybe you're watching this or you're listening to this at a future time, and that new opportunity that's coming into your life, or maybe for some of the people here, that new opportunity that you're going to stop and take a look at and reevaluate is a new relationship or a new job. Maybe you're buying a new house or starting a new school year or ending a school new year, or maybe it's a new financial situation you find yourself in, for good or bad. What's so great is we can pick any day, draw a line in the sand, and say, today is the day things are going to be different. From this day forward, I'm gonna make a fresh opportunity. My daddy, he told me that life is like a game of poker. And he said, Judah, we're all given different hands. No two people have the same hand in this game called life. And don't spend your time griping and complaining about the hand you were dealt or the superior hand that somebody else was dealt. Use your skills and ability to play the hand you've been dealt the best, because every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser. It's about the plan and the strategy you put into place to play your hand. So let's just stop where we are, reassess, pick a spot in the future, and then draw a line, draw a path, mark out a way that we're going to get to there. And I want to quickly say this: many people will resist this. You may even be related to some of these people. Many people will respond that things just happen to them. They go through life in a very reactive way. I'm hoping that nobody is here today. I mean, we're all part of an investors club. We're all interested in doing something more, and we recognize that we can change our surroundings. But I think that it's important to recognize that there is something unique about that mindset, taking on ourselves the preparation mindset and deciding that we want to do something different. So let's talk about how to prepare like an Olympic athlete. First thing that we need to do as we prepare like an Olympic athlete, when we approach a new opportunity in our life, the first thing we need to do is define who we are. Who were you meant to be? What are your core values? Hopefully we've all heard the analogy before that we should take the time to write down 5 to 10 things that we want our family or loved ones to say about us when we're gone. Hopefully that's not a new concept to anybody. And newsflash, you will not live forever. You're not going to be here on this earth forever, and you have a finite amount of time. But just like you have a finite amount of time, there's also a finite amount of things that people can say about you. See, they won't be able to say that you were a wine connoisseur, that you explored the Amazon, that you were dad of the year, that you were a philanthropist, that you played the piano better than anybody else. And you know, I mean, you can't be everything to all people. So define who you are going to be and what you are going to limit your scope to so that you can focus on and do those things better. And when you do that, we allow ourselves to keep from being distracted. An Olympic athlete first picks their sport. Before they set up a diet regimen, before they set up a training regimen, before they do anything like that, they pick what sport they're going to compete in. We as real estate investors first pick what type of real estate we're going to focus on before we start lining up money, before we put together a marketing plan or anything like that. So who are you personally? I'm not even talking professionally. I think that our goals need to begin with personally define your DNA, your core values. How are you going to behave around people, and what do you want people to say about you? What will remain constant about you no matter what changes around you? Use adjectives to define yourself. Side note, adjectives is a very difficult word to spell for us dyslexics, just so you know. I actually ended up giving up on Word. I was typing it in like 80 different ways in Microsoft Word, and I was getting a red line no matter what I did, and it also wasn't helping me. I had to go to Google. And I actually found out that Google was actually a better spell checker than Microsoft Word. So I just thought I'd share that with you. So take some time, reflect, and refine your vision. Don't just write this out, but then also pause, stop, think about it, reflect, and refine your vision on who you are so that you won't get distracted. Seek the counsel of wise friends. Reestablish your core values. Write them down, print them out, hang them up, show them around. Bring your spouse in on it. I have on my computer at work, I have a screensaver that says days are expensive. I don't have anything hanging on my mirror, but my screensaver says days are expensive, because one of the things that I'm working on is staying focused throughout my day and not allowing myself to get distracted by all of the many different opportunities that present themselves on a daily basis. It's who I want to be regardless of what happens. Have you shared your core values with your kids? Are you willing to be vulnerable in front of your children? Every new opportunity needs to start with evaluating your core values. Now, they shouldn't change. They should be your core values. But every time you come up to one of those new opportunities in life, one of those change moments, stop, fall back, look at your core values and say, how do I want to apply my core values to this situation? Am I currently living out my core values? How do I want my core values to affect the way that I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity, and how should I apply them to that? Second thing we want to do, so the first thing is set core values. The second way that we train as an Olympian is we need to define what you are going to do and set goals. Setting plans and goals that can work for you. Now there's some reasons for this, and I have 4 bullet points that I'm going to go through for why I think goals work, and then I'm going to go through 3 bullet points of why I think goals matter and why I think they're actually worth the time. So I'm going to try and quickly move through this. Setting goals and working towards a plan allows you to clarify purpose and actively align your life. They allow you to clarify purpose and actively align your life. Why are you getting up in the morning? Why are you working more than 40 hours? You put in 40 hours a week at this job, and then you also, many of us are part-time real estate investors, and we're going to put more time and effort and energy in this. We should have our purpose clearly defined, why we want to do that. And if all you do in life is wait for results of any situation to determine whether or not things are going well for you, whether or not you're moving down the road you want, if all we do is wait for results, we're working with what economists call trailing indicators. You can only ever judge how you have done, not how you are doing. When we set goals, instantly the inverse happens. Now, you aren't going to instantly be guaranteed success, but you begin to orient your life toward leading indicators, where you can begin to position yourself and say, rather than waiting for results to measure success, I am going to set goals that will lead me in the direction that I want to go. So, point number one is goals allow us to align ourselves towards leading indicators as opposed to trailing indicators. Goals are like north on a compass. I do quite a bit of hiking. I don't use a compass for much of it, but I do know this. In life, if we set out on a destination and we don't have clearly mapped out a plan to reach that destination, it isn't likely that we'll get there. In fact, it's likely we won't get there. It's highly probable we will find ourselves where we don't expect to be and will end up where we don't want to be. Waiting to find out where you are on a map until you've hiked 10 miles is really pretty silly if you think about it. Instead, a compass provides a true direction forward. A compass allows you to say, I don't know what obstacles I'm going to find on this path, but I do know that if I keep on moving down this path, I'm going to get to where I want to go. Goals allow you to have confidence. I know, according to my compass and according to my map, if I walk in that direction, there's a stream, I'm going to be able to get there. So, number one, goals allow us to align ourselves towards future indicators as opposed to trailing indicators. Goals allow us to move forward with confidence because they act as true north on a compass. Third thing that goals allow us to do is objectively evaluate progress instead of subjectively. How many times in life do you ask people, how are you doing? And they say, well, I feel like I'm doing okay, or things seem to be getting better. Feelings are not facts. And when you set goals, they allow us to answer the questions of life with facts. Is what I'm doing today moving me closer to or further from where I want to be? Is what I have prioritized and is it aligned with what I need to be doing to progress towards where I want to be? That also presupposes that you have priorities, which, by the way, you do, and they're either the priorities that you allow to happen to you or the priorities that you've actually set. So, notice again, this is the second time I'm saying this. This is not a goal-setting workshop. I'm not teaching you how to write goals. I'm teaching you, if you have goals, the questions that you can answer with fact. The question isn't, do I feel like hanging out with my friends the amount of time that I'm spending with them? Is that a good thing? The question is, objectively measured against my goals, is it actually a good thing? And sometimes it's not even a question of good or bad. It's a choice between good and best. Are there things in my schedule that no matter how good they are interfering with more important priorities? I have two examples, a personal and a professional example. My personal example goes like this. I'm a lifelong reader. Many of you know that. I am a book, tape, and seminar junkie. Not only do I read lots of books, but I spend a lot of time reading economic reports and economic data and commentary and outlooks based on those projections and outlooks and books. But I found something to be true. I found that many nights and many weekends, I was not at the supper table, or helping my wife with the kids, or playing with them. They'd be outside playing, and I would be reading a book. Now, reading is in no way bad for me. It's actually a good thing. But I found that I need to put my family first, and I need to reorganize some of my priorities and limit some things in my life. On a professional level, I spend a lot of time networking. I spend a lot of time putting myself out there in front of deals and doing other things like that. But if I'm constantly leaving the office to go to mixers or actively talking on the phone, coaching people and doing business building activities or talking about marketing plans or answering people's Facebook real estate questions. You know, people talk about real estate all the time on Facebook, and I always try to, you know, make a comment or two because you never know where that's going to go. If I'm constantly doing that kind of behavior, instead of closing the deals I have on my desk, instead of moving the deals on my desk from this milestone to the next milestone, it's not what's best. Networking, learning, reading, marketing are in no way bad things. But even me with my mantra of knowledge is not power, action is power, I can still get distracted and get caught up in that notion of addiction to knowledge. So I need to ask myself, is what I'm doing best? So the third reason I think goals matter and we need to work out a plan is because they allow for objective measure. Fourth thing is this: goals provide a milestone. They allow you to divide any opportunity into what I call bite-sized chunks, and then work your way through those bite-sized chunks. And this is probably the part that's the most valuable to me, because a lot of people, they like those milestones to see, okay, the next milestone isn't really that far away, so they have the encouragement to keep on moving, they get the energy to keep on moving and accomplish that next milestone. I got all the energy and gumption I need. In fact, I have too much, and therefore I'm very easily distracted. So having that next milestone only 1 or 2 steps away is very good for me because it helps me stay on track. I like to think of this almost as a golf game. Now, what I do on the course isn't technically allowed to be referred to as golf, but when I try to play golf, and let's say the hole is 10 feet away, the first thing I do is I kind of visualize how's the ball going to roll. Is it going to go straight? Is it going to curve a little bit? And, you know, they're natural greens, so they never go straight. So instead of shooting for a spot 10 feet away, I shoot for a spot 5 feet away. I try to make the ball roll over that spot that's 5 feet away because it's easier to visualize, it's easier to line up. I still hit it with enough emphasis to get, you know, the whole 10 feet away, but it allows you to hit a closer target. It allows you to shoot for something that's an easier stepping stone to go for. An example of a short-term goal I have is to launch 2 websites for this club. One of them is going to be launched in less than 30 days. I had to develop a lot of content for that. I had to review a lot of content for that. There were some meetings that we needed to put together, and there was a lot of stuff that needed to happen. And I was able to accomplish that because I broke that task down into bite-sized chunks. A medium-term goal I have is the amount of money that I want to earn this year. And how much of that money do I want to come from real estate? How much of that money do I want to come from my loan business? How much of that money do I want to come from other businesses that I'm involved with? And how much on a monthly basis? So I break that down into bite-sized chunks. So, and of course I have long-term goals. Where do I want to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? All of them work best and can be broken down into bite-sized pieces so that I can manage them daily and take action on them. The most prevalent comment I get as I run this club, besides "thank you, Judah, we love it, we appreciate it," is, how do you do it all? You're a full-time dad, full-time father, full-time dad, full-time husband, you own a mortgage company, you do real estate full-time, and you also run this club. Judah, how do you make it all happen? One of the ways that I do it is I don't look at all the tasks that I need to do. I break my tasks down into bite-sized chunks, and I focus on that specifically at that time. And accomplish just that task. So goals allow us to have milestones. A couple things that we need to remember when we write goals is a goal without a deadline is just a dream. My uncle told me that when I was 16. I've since heard it, 1,000 different places, but I always remember my Uncle Mitch was the first one who told it to me, and it's certainly been a guiding principle of my life. I love riddles and brain teasers. Does anybody know how you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time, exactly. I like this ancient Chinese proverb. Don't be afraid of moving slowly. Be afraid of standing still. And if we don't have milestones set, it's very difficult to tell, are we moving slowly or are we standing still? Goals allow us to define what those milestones are and track our path along the way. The three major religions of the world, I would appreciate it if you give me some leeway here and make a religious analogy. The three major religions of the world have roughly the same creation story. So whether Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, whether you're still waiting for the Messiah to reveal himself, or whether you pray to Mecca 7 times a day, we all basically have the same account of how we got here. And what does the good book say? God created the world in 6 bite-sized chunks. And after each one, God himself stopped, looked at what he had just done, and said, "It is good." If God takes time out to evaluate what he has done, shouldn't we? Now, I'm a very religious person, and so I don't want to offend any of my fellow believers. I know I just skipped over some very deep theological parts of that story, and I just skimmed right over them. But as I reflect on my need for strategic planning and vision and setting goals and applying core values to them, and I work through goals in my life, it is incredibly encouraging to me that God, our Heavenly Father, uses a goal-setting model. Or at least he knew he should use a goal-setting model so it would be properly setting a good example for us to follow. So how do we set goals? When you're setting goals, I encourage you to think holistically. Think mind, body, and soul. Don't just focus on financial opportunities. If you focus strictly on the financial opportunities of your goals and what new opportunity lies before you, you will do damage to the other areas of your life. And that damage can come back to haunt you and hurt you financially in the long run. Divorce is expensive. Okay? One of the things that can also come back to hurt us is if we set a health goal and we don't think about the financial consequences, or we think about a relationship goal and we don't apply it to the rest of our life. We need to think holistically about our goals, and we need to be sure that we're bringing in our spouse and those dear to us for what our goals in so that they have buy-in. Honey, listen, I'm not going to work 40 hours a week. I'm going to work 60 hours a week, and here's why, and here's the timeline, and here's what I'm going to try and accomplish with that extra 20 hours a week that I'm putting in. Or maybe you're saying to yourself, I'm going to work an hour less every day so that I can work out, because I know that energy that I will get will actually help me be more productive and proficient during my working hours. And I have a good friend of mine who he spends 20 minutes a day running, and while he's on the treadmill, he has a book in front of him that he's reading or listening to something. And then he spends about 20 minutes a day on a rowing machine, and while he's on that rowing machine, he spends time reflecting on 1 or 2 of the pieces that he read about or listened to on the audio. So we can use that time to be very reflective, and that's how he thought holistically about setting your goals. So be intentionally holistic as you set your goals. Be specific, be measurable, they should be attainable, and they should be time specific. That spells SMART for those of you that are taking notes. Specific, measurable, attainable, and time specific. Making them time specific is very important, because if you say I'm going to do XYZ between now and June 1st, June 1st may come and go and you might not have actually reached it, but you will probably be further along the line than if you wouldn't have given yourself the date of accomplishing it by June 1st. Set attainable goals, because you need to evaluate. Sometimes you will say, geez, I'm accomplishing all my goals. Maybe I need to set my goals a little bit higher, or my goals, I constantly keep on missing them, and so maybe you need to strive harder or set more realistic goals. These 4 things that should be a part of all your goals, you will not succeed at each of the 4 of these on each of your first set of goals the first time around. And that's okay. And that's one of the reasons why I think subconsciously we get held back from setting goals, is we don't want to fail at setting those goals. Give yourself permission to set a deadline, and it'd be okay if you don't 100% hit that deadline. Because you will probably get more accomplished. I write much more specific goals now than I used to. When I first started writing goals, they were not very specific, but I knew that I needed to work on making my goals more specific, and so now my goals are much more specific. So specific, measurable, attainable, time specific. It's called the SMART goal setting model. You can read about it anywhere. So why should we do it? It doesn't matter. Doesn't it seem like it would be better to just jump into an opportunity? And there's three reasons why I want to encourage us to take the time and why I think it makes more sense to pause and reflect on core values and set goals. The first is this. Life has been, is today, and always will be a life of challenge, especially today in this market. Life is a series of challenges broken up by crises. That's not a Tony Robbins quote. Why can't I think of Eat That Frog? Brian Tracy. Wow. I didn't write Brian Tracy's name in here because he's one of my great heroes and I just always remember his name. So Brian Tracy said, life is a series of challenges broken up by crises. Recognize that there's going to be challenges and problems and issues that come to your life. When I ran track, I ran 110 high hurdles. I knew my race wasn't a sprint. I knew there was going to be obstacles along the way and I prepared for them and I was ready to jump. Life is going to be the same thing for us. In life, we're going to have good and bad opportunities, and the best way to get through them is to have a plan preset to keep us focused and on track. Second reason why goals and core values and preparation, they allow us to operate in peace. If you remember nothing else from what I'm going to tell you about here today, I want you to remember this one point. Goals allow us to operate in peace. Consistently chasing the shiny object and the new shiny object, or consistently comparing ourselves to others, will both lead to distraction and unfulfillment. Stay on your track. Don't get distracted or disorganized, bouncing all around. A good friend of mine recently turned down an opportunity to host his own radio show on the major radio station in his local media market. The reason he said he did that was because it didn't fit into his current priorities and goals. Side note, I would have had a very hard time saying no to that opportunity. But because he had set his goals, holistic goals that included family and friendship and relationships, not just financial, he was able to say no. Now this individual works hard. He works very hard. But how he keeps himself from working too hard is he sets holistic goals. And one of the things that's so interesting is when an opportunity like that presents itself and you say no to it, you're able to realize that that is something you want in your life. You can delegate, you can stop doing things, you can rearrange some things. And then one of the things that I admire is when he comes back to this, I know that he will perform at a higher level with greater success because he prepared himself for that opportunity and said no to give himself time to clear some things off. The other part that I really struggle with this is not just keeping yourself on track, but also comparing yourself to others. I often struggle with the success of others. And I have to remind myself that I need to run my race that I've laid out for myself, and I'm just supposed to run my race. I don't need to get caught up in chasing the mythical Joneses. So the second thing we need to remember about core values and planning and why they're worth it is because they let us live in better peace. Less anxiety, less worry, less unfinished business. The third and last reason that goals matter and why we should set them is because I believe that we are called to more. You are responsible as the head of your household. As a nation, we are made up of states. Our states are made up of communities, and our communities are made up of families. And as the head of that family, I encourage you to not just think about your spouse and kids. I often talk about what a great influence my grandfathers and my uncles were to me. I had older cousins who were an example to me. And the reason that these people were an example to me wasn't because bad stuff didn't happen to them. It wasn't because they were lucky or because they were born with it. It was because they had a plan executed for their life and they acted out on it. I firmly believe with everything I have and everything that I am that evil exists in the world. And evil will attack you. It will attack your plans. It will attack your business. It will attack your home. It will attack your children. It will attack your marriage. Core values help us struggle against and ultimately overcome that evil. You are not just a bystander. You are not just a victim. You are not just supposed to stand on the sideline and watch. I need hope that I'm not just a victim. I need hope that no matter what comes my way, and no matter who put it there or how difficult it is, that I shall overcome it. The more detailed your plan, the easier you can sleep. The more detailed your plan, the more hope you can have. Hope is not a strategy. But because of our strategy, we can have hope. So, decide what your core values are. Write them down if you haven't done so already. Talk with people around you. Get input on what they are and people who can hold you accountable. Write out your goals. Be specific. Spend time contemplating them. Make them holistic. Establish ways to measure them. Obviously plan for what may or may not come. And when you're done with all of that, find your passion, think about your hope, and begin to take action. Because you can make a difference. You are the person who can make a difference in your life. It does matter. People are watching you. Knowledge is not power. Action is power.